I'll be playing GTA, running missions, and reading some Reddit stories along the way. Quick heads up though, these stories can be pretty shocking and hard to believe. Some moments will make you laugh, others will have you like, there's no way this is real. I'll start by reading the first story now. I sold my adult son's car because he refused to move out. I'm a 55-year-old father, and I need to know if what I did makes me a terrible parent, or if I finally did what needed to be done. My son Jake is 28 years old and has been living with me and my wife rent-free for the past 10 years. Yes, you read that right. A full decade. After he graduated college at 22, he moved back home saying he needed just a few months to find a job and save up for his own place. Those few months turned into years. Here's the thing. Jake has a decent job. He works in IT making around 65K a year. He's not struggling financially. He just refuses to move out because, and I quote, "Why would I pay rent somewhere else when I can save money here?" He doesn't pay us a single dollar, doesn't help with groceries, doesn't do chores unless we literally beg him. His room is a disaster, and he treats our home like a hotel. The car in question is a 2019 Honda Civic. We bought it for him when he graduated college as a gift, but it's been in our name this whole time because the insurance was cheaper that way. We've been asking him to transfer it to his name for years, but he always had an excuse. For the past 3 years, my wife and I have been having the same conversation with Jake every few months. "You need to start looking for your own place." He always has the same responses. "I'm working on it. Just 6 more months. The market is too expensive right now. I'm almost ready." It's always something. Last year we gave him an ultimatum. We said he had until January 1st of this year to move out. We even offered to help with the deposit on an apartment. January came and went. He didn't even look at apartments. When we confronted him, he laughed and said, "You're not actually going to kick me out. I'm your son." That comment broke something in me. My wife and I discussed it for weeks, and we decided on a tough love approach. 2 weeks ago, while Jake was at work, I sold the Honda Civic. I got $14,000 for it, which I put into a savings account that we're not giving him unless he moves out and proves he can live independently for at least a year. When Jake came home and saw the car was gone, he absolutely lost it. He screamed at me, called me a thief, said I had no right to sell his car. I told him it was never his car. It was in our name, and we made the decision we thought was best. I explained that he could use Uber or public transportation like millions of other adults do, and that maybe this would finally motivate him to get his own place where he could buy his own car. He called me every name in the book. He's been sleeping at friends' houses on and off for the past 2 weeks, which honestly proves he has options and could have moved out any time. My other 2 kids are divided. My daughter says I did what needed to be done, but my younger son thinks I went too far and humiliated Jake. My wife is also having second thoughts now. She supported the decision initially, but seeing Jake so angry has made her worried we permanently damaged our relationship with him. She thinks we should give him the car money and apologize. But here's my thinking. We gave him 10 years. We gave him warnings, ultimatums, offers to help, everything. At some point, being a parent means not enabling your kids to stay comfortable in their dysfunction. He's almost 30 years old. He should have his own place by now. Some of my friends say I'm a hero. Others say I'm cruel. I honestly don't know anymore. I just want my son to grow up and take responsibility for his life. So, am I the asshole for selling my adult son's car to force him to finally become independent? Update. For those asking, yes, we're still letting him live here if he wants to come back. But we've told him he now needs to pay $800 rent or leave within 60 days. He hasn't responded to that yet. I told my best friend's fiancé that he has a secret OnlyFans account. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I just blew up my best friend's life. I need to know if I did the right thing, or if I'm the worst friend in the world. My best friend Marcus and I have been tight since high school. We're talking ride or die, know everything about each other type friendship. He got engaged to his girlfriend Sarah about 8 months ago, and the wedding is supposed to be in June. Here's the context. Sarah comes from a very religious, conservative family. She's sweet, kind, and honestly perfect for Marcus in a lot of ways. She's a kindergarten teacher, volunteers at her church, and has very traditional values about relationships and marriage. Marcus knew all of this when he proposed. 3 weeks ago, I was scrolling through Twitter late at night and stumbled onto a profile that looked familiar. It took me a second, but then I realized it was Marcus. He had an OnlyFans account where he posts explicit content. I'm talking full nudity, everything. He wasn't showing his face in most photos, but I recognized his tattoos, his bedroom, even his goddamn watch. I was shocked. I immediately texted him, "Dude, WTF is this?" and sent him the link. He called me within 5 minutes, panicking. He admitted he'd been doing it for about a year and a half. He said he makes around $3,000 a month from it, and that the money helps pay for the wedding and their future house down payment. I asked him if Sarah knew. He said no, and that he couldn't tell her because she'd never understand and would definitely call off the wedding. I told him that's exactly why he needs to tell her. She's about to marry him without knowing this huge secret about his life. He got defensive. He said it's not cheating because he's not physically touching anyone. It's just business, like being a model. He said what Sarah doesn't know won't hurt her, and that he'd stop after the wedding once they had enough saved up. I gave him 2 weeks to tell her himself. I said, "Marcus, if you don't tell her, I will. She deserves to know before she marries you." He begged me not to say anything. He said I'd be ruining his life over something that isn't even a big deal. Those 2 weeks passed. He didn't tell her. So last Saturday, I met up with Sarah for coffee, and I told her everything. I showed her the account. She went pale, started crying right there in the coffee shop, and left without saying another word to me. By that evening, the engagement was off. Sarah had confronted Marcus. He admitted everything, and she gave him back the ring. She's devastated, not just about the OnlyFans, but about the lying, and the fact that he was never going to tell her. Now the fallout is insane. Marcus has completely cut me off. He sent me a long message calling me a traitor, saying I destroyed his relationship over my own moral superiority. He said a real friend would have kept his secret and minded his own business. Half of our friend group has sided with him, saying I had no right to interfere in his relationship like that. But the other half agrees with me. They say Sarah had the right to know who she was marrying, and that Marcus created this situation himself by lying to her for over a year. Marcus's mom even called me. She cried on the phone saying I ruined her son's happiness and that Sarah would have never needed to know if I just kept quiet. She said, "Some things are better left unsaid in relationships." But here's what I keep coming back to. Sarah is a sweet, religious woman who was about to legally bind herself to someone who was hiding a massive part of his life from her. What happens after they're married and she finds out on her own? What about the lying? What if someone from her church or her family found his account? I didn't do this to hurt Marcus. I did it because Sarah deserved to make an informed choice about her own life. But now I've lost my best friend of over a decade. I'm being called a snake by half our social circle, and I'm questioning everything. Did I do the right thing, or should I have just stayed out of it? My wife just found out I have a 12-year-old son she never knew existed. I'm a 38-year-old man, and my marriage of 7 years is imploding right now. I need unbiased opinions because everyone in my life is either furious at me or telling me to lawyer up. Here's the full story. Before I met my wife, Emma, I was in a casual relationship with a woman named Jenna. This was about 13 years ago. We were never serious, never exclusive, just hooking up occasionally for a few months. When things fizzled out, we stopped talking, and that was that. About a year after we stopped seeing each other, Jenna reached out and told me she was pregnant and that the baby was mine. I was 25, broke, and absolutely terrified. I offered to help financially, but Jenna said her family was well off and she didn't need my money. She said she wanted to raise the baby on her own terms, and honestly, I was relieved. She made me sign away my parental rights, and I wrote her a check for $5,000 as a one-time thing. After that, we never spoke again. I convinced myself that chapter was closed. I moved on with my life, focused on my career, and eventually met Emma. We fell in love, got married, and built a beautiful life together. We have a house, 2 dogs, and we've been talking about starting our own family. Here's where everything fell apart. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a lawyer. Jenna passed away in a car accident. She apparently never married and had no family willing to take her son, my son, Tyler. He's 12 years old. The lawyer said that even though I signed away my rights, Jenna had listed me as the biological father on his birth certificate, and now the state is looking to place Tyler with family before he goes into foster care. I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to do. I should have told Emma immediately, but I panicked. I met with the lawyer alone, saw photos of Tyler, and even met him once. He looks exactly like I did at that age. It was surreal. When I finally told Emma, I tried to ease into it. I sat her down and said, "There's something from my past I never told you about." Her face went white before I even finished. When I explained everything, the relationship with Jenna, the pregnancy, signing away my rights, and now Tyler needing a home, she just stared at me in silence for what felt like an hour. Then she exploded. She screamed at me, asking how I could hide something this massive for our entire relationship. She said I lied to her by omission, that I let her marry me without knowing I had a child out there in the world. She asked what else I've been hiding and said she doesn't even know who I am anymore. Emma moved to her sister's house that same night. It's been 3 weeks, and she's still there. She won't take my calls. Her family is telling her to divorce me. My family is divided. My mom thinks Emma is overreacting and that I was young and made a mistake. But my sister says I'm a liar who deserves whatever consequences I get. Here's my perspective. Yes, I should have told Emma about Tyler before we got married. I know that. But in my mind, I genuinely didn't have a son. I signed away my rights. I wasn't involved in his life at all. It felt like something that happened in a past life. I never thought it would come back like this. And now, I have this 12-year-old boy who just lost his mother, who has no one else, and who is biologically mine. The state is pressuring me to take custody. Tyler's caseworker says he's struggling emotionally and needs stability. I feel like I owe him something, but I also feel like my marriage is over because of it. Emma says if I take Tyler in, she's definitely filing for divorce. She says she can't trust me and doesn't want to raise another woman's child, especially one I hid from her. But if I don't take him, he goes into foster care, and I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I abandoned my own kid twice. I'm being torn apart here. Am I the asshole for keeping this secret? Should I have told Emma from the beginning, even though I thought that chapter was completely closed? I faked being pregnant for 3 months to test if my boyfriend would stay. I'm a 24-year-old woman, and I did something absolutely unforgivable. I don't even know why I'm posting this, except that I need to confess to someone because the guilt is eating me alive. I've been dating my boyfriend Ryan for 2 years. Our relationship has always been a bit rocky, not toxic, just unstable. He's a great guy, but he's always been wishy-washy about commitment. He'd say things like, "I love you, but I'm not sure I'm ready for forever," or "I don't know if I see myself getting married anytime soon." It made me feel insecure constantly, like I was always 1 foot out the door. About 4 months ago, we had another one of those conversations where he said he wasn't sure what he wanted long term. I was devastated. I started spiraling, thinking he was going to break up with me any day. All my friends were getting engaged, moving in with their partners, and I felt stuck with someone who couldn't even decide if he wanted a future with me. That's when I did it. I bought a fake positive pregnancy test off Etsy. Yes, they sell those. It came in the mail, and I showed it to Ryan one night after dinner, crying and saying I didn't know what we were going to do. His reaction shocked me. He didn't freak out. He didn't pull away. He held me, told me everything would be okay, and said, "We'll figure this out together." Over the next few days, he completely stepped up. He started researching baby stuff, talking about moving into a bigger apartment, and even called his mom to tell her she was going to be a grandmother. For the first time in our entire relationship, Ryan felt present and committed. He wasn't distant anymore. He was making plans, talking about our future, being affectionate in ways he never was before. It felt amazing. I know how messed up that sounds, but it did. I told myself I'd miscarry after a few weeks, and that would be the end of it. But then weeks turned into a month, and Ryan was so excited, so involved, that I couldn't bring myself to fake a miscarriage. So I just kept going. I told him I had morning sickness. I pretended to go to doctor's appointments. I even started showing him fake ultrasound photos I found online. This went on for 3 months. 3 full months of lying to his face every single day. And then, 2 weeks ago, something happened that I never expected. I actually got pregnant, for real this time. I took 5 tests to make sure, and they were all positive. I'm genuinely pregnant now, about 4 weeks along. When I told Ryan, he was overjoyed. He cried happy tears, hugged me, and started planning everything all over again. But here's the issue. I'm pretty sure he thinks this is the same pregnancy I told him about 3 months ago. The timeline doesn't add up, but he hasn't questioned it yet. I think he assumes I was off on my dates or something. Now I'm spiraling in a completely different way. I'm actually pregnant with Ryan's baby. He's stepped up, he's committed, he wants this. But our entire foundation is built on a lie. He thinks we've been preparing for this baby for months, but the truth is, I faked the first pregnancy just to test him. I don't know what to do. Do I tell him the truth? That I lied about being pregnant before, manipulated him into proving his commitment, and now I'm coincidentally actually pregnant? If I tell him, I'll lose him for sure. He'll see me as a manipulative liar, which, let's be honest, I am. But if I don't tell him, I have to live with this secret forever. Every time he talks about our journey or mentions how long we've known about the baby, I feel sick. I'm lying to the father of my child about something so fundamental. Part of me thinks the fake pregnancy worked. It made him realize what he wanted, and now we're in a better place. But another part of me knows that's insane justification for what I did. I haven't told a single person about this. Not my best friend, not my sister, no one. I'm terrified and I don't know how to move forward. Do I confess and risk everything? Or do I bury this secret and try to build a life on top of it? I know I'm a terrible person. You don't need to tell me that. I just need advice on what the hell I'm supposed to do now. I put hidden cameras in my home and caught my babysitter letting my baby cry for hours. I'm a 32-year-old mother, and I'm furious, heartbroken, and facing a legal nightmare all at once. I need to know if what I did was justified or if I just made everything worse. I have an 8-month-old son named Liam. He's my first baby, and like any new parent, I've been anxious about leaving him with anyone. When I had to go back to work 3 months ago, I interviewed several babysitters and ultimately hired a woman named Patricia. She's 45 years old, came with amazing references, had CPR certification, and seemed like a grandmother-type figure. I thought we hit the jackpot. For the first month, everything seemed fine. But then I started noticing things that bothered me. Liam would be unusually fussy when I got home, almost frantic when he saw me. He'd cling to me and cry if I tried to put him down. Patricia always explained it away, saying he was teething or going through a clingy phase. Then I noticed he'd have the same diaper on that I'd put him in that morning, which seemed odd for a full 8-hour day. When I asked Patricia about it, she said she'd just changed him right before I got home. Okay, weird timing, but plausible. But the thing that really set off alarm bells was when I came home early one day and heard Liam screaming from outside the house. I rushed inside and found him in his crib, red-faced and sobbing, while Patricia was in the living room watching TV with headphones on. She claimed she just stepped away for a minute and didn't hear him. That's when I decided to install cameras. Here's the legal issue. I live in a state where it's illegal to record someone without their consent if they have a reasonable expectation of privacy. I didn't tell Patricia about the cameras because I wanted to see her real behavior, not her on-camera behavior. What I found on those recordings made me physically ill. Over the course of 1 week, I watched Patricia ignore my son's cries for hours at a time. She'd feed him once in the morning, put him in his crib, and then just leave him there. He'd cry and cry, and she'd sit in the other room on her phone or watching TV. She wasn't hitting him or anything physically abusive, but the emotional neglect was clear. One day, he cried for 2 straight hours before she even went to check on him, and when she didn't pick him up. She just looked at him and walked away. I also saw her eating our food, going through our personal belongings, and taking a nap in our guest bedroom while my son screamed in the other room. I confronted her immediately after watching the footage. I showed her the videos and fired her on the spot. She started crying and making excuses, saying she was having a hard time and that babies need to learn to self-soothe. I told her to get out of my house and never contact us again. Here's where it gets complicated. I want to report her to the police and make sure she never works with children again. But when I consulted with a lawyer, he told me the footage I have is illegal. I recorded her without consent in my home, which violates wiretapping laws in my state. Not only can the footage not be used as evidence, but Patricia could potentially sue me for invasion of privacy. I'm devastated. I have clear proof that this woman neglected my infant son, but I can't use it because of how I obtained it. The lawyer said if I try to report her or share the footage, I could face legal consequences myself. My husband thinks I should just let it go, say we're lucky we found out and fired her, and move on. But I can't let it go. What if she gets another job with another family? What if she does this to someone else's baby? Some of my friends say I did the right thing installing cameras to protect my child, and that any parent would do the same. Others say I should have just told her about the cameras up front. and then this wouldn't be an issue. I'm torn between protecting other children and protecting myself legally. I keep thinking about my son crying alone for hours, and it breaks my heart. But I also don't want to end up being the one in legal trouble when I was just trying to keep my baby safe. Was I wrong to install hidden cameras? And what the hell do I do now with this footage that proves neglect, but can't be used? My husband pretends to be disabled when we go out to get special treatment. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I'm mortified by my husband's behavior. But I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this is as bad as I think it is. My husband Derek is 31, and he's a completely healthy, able-bodied man. No disabilities, no injuries, nothing. But about a year ago, he started doing something that makes my skin crawl, and it's getting worse. It started at Disney World. We went for our anniversary, and the lines were insane. 2 to 3 hour waits for every ride. Derek jokingly said, "Man, I wish we had a wheelchair so we could skip these lines." I laughed it off, but then he got weirdly quiet and thoughtful. The next day, he started limping, like dramatically limping. When we got to the front of a ride line, he asked a cast member if there was any accommodation for people with mobility issues. They were incredibly kind and helpful, offering us an alternate entrance with a much shorter wait. I was uncomfortable, but didn't say anything because I didn't want to cause a scene. After that trip, Derek seemed to realize he'd stumbled onto something. Now, a year later, he does this constantly. When we fly, he requests a wheelchair at the airport so he can board early and get assistance through security. At theme parks, he exaggerates a limp. At concerts, he's asked for accessible seating. Even at restaurants, he's hinted at having mobility problems to get better tables. The worst part? He's gotten props. 2 months ago, he borrowed a wheelchair from a friend whose grandmother passed away. He keeps it in our garage and brings it to places where he thinks it'll get us perks. I am not exaggerating. My fully able-bodied husband sits in a wheelchair at airports and sporting events to get priority treatment. I've told him this is wrong. I've said it's offensive to people with real disabilities, that it's fraud, and that it makes me feel disgusting to be complicit in it. His response? It's not hurting anyone. These accommodations exist, and if they're offering them, why not take advantage? We're not cutting in front of disabled people. We're just using a system that's available. He also says I'm being too sensitive and morally superior. He claims everyone would do this if they had the guts, and that I should be grateful we get to skip lines and board planes early instead of judging him. But I can't shake the feeling that this is deeply wrong. People with actual disabilities fight for these accommodations. They deal with skepticism and judgment daily. And here's my husband, faking a limp so he can get on a roller coaster faster. Last month, we were at a concert, and he was in his wheelchair. A venue staff member asked what his disability was, and Derek said he had a chronic pain condition. The staff member was so kind and accommodating, and I wanted to crawl into a hole. After the show, Derek stood up out of the wheelchair, stretched, and said, "Man, that was a great show," right in front of venue staff. I was humiliated. I've refused to go places with him if he's going to pull this stunt. I've told him I won't be part of it anymore. But he just goes without me, or does it anyway, and posts photos on social media like everything is normal. His friends think it's funny. His brother even asked to borrow the wheelchair for his own trip. I feel like I'm married to someone with completely broken moral compass. But when I talk to some of my friends about it, they're divided. Some are horrified like I am. Others say, "Hey, big corporations like Disney and airlines can afford it. Who cares?" I care. I think it's disgusting. But Derek genuinely doesn't see the issue, and it's making me question our entire relationship. Is this divorce-worthy? Or am I being overdramatic about something that, in his words, doesn't actually hurt anyone? I need outside perspective because I feel like I'm losing my mind. I found out my therapist of 5 years is dating my ex-husband. I'm a 41-year-old woman, and I'm going through something so surreal that I still can't fully process it. I don't even know what I'm feeling anymore. Betrayed, angry, violated, or just completely lost. I've been seeing my therapist, Dr. Lauren, for 5 years. She's been with me through some of the darkest times of my life. My divorce, my father's death, my struggles with anxiety and depression, career changes, everything. I trusted her completely. She knew every detail of my failed marriage, every intimate thought, every insecurity I've ever had. My ex-husband Paul and I divorced 3 years ago. It was brutal. He had an emotional affair with a coworker, and when I found out, he blamed me for not being present enough in the marriage. The divorce was messy, expensive, and emotionally devastating. Dr. Lauren was my rock through all of it. 2 weeks ago, I was having dinner with a friend at a nice restaurant downtown when I saw them, Dr. Lauren and Paul, together. They were sitting at a corner table, laughing, holding hands across the table, looking at each other the way couples do. I literally froze. My friend asked what was wrong, and I couldn't even speak. I just pointed. At first, I thought maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it was someone who looked like them. But no, it was definitely them. I watched for a few minutes, hoping I was hallucinating, and then I left the restaurant before they could see me. I spent the entire weekend spiraling. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about every session I'd had with Dr. Lauren where I talked about Paul. Every piece of advice she'd given me about moving on, about setting boundaries, about healing. Had she already been seeing him then? Did she know things about him that I'd told her in confidence? Did they talk about me? I decided to confront her in our next session. I walked in, sat down, and immediately said, "I saw you with Paul at a restaurant last weekend." Her face went pale, but she tried to stay professional. She said, "I think we should talk about why you're bringing this up and what feelings it's bringing up for you." I cut her off. "No, I need you to tell me the truth. Are you dating my ex-husband?" She was quiet for a long moment, and then she admitted it. She said they'd been seeing each other for about 6 months. She tried to explain that it just happened, that they met at some community event and hit it off. She said she'd been struggling with whether to tell me, but ultimately decided it was her personal life and separate from our therapeutic relationship. I asked her how long after my divorce they started dating. She said about 2.5 years. So yes, I was still her patient when they got together. I was still coming to her every week, crying about my failed marriage to the man she was now dating. I completely lost it. I told her this was a massive ethical violation, that she had access to my entire psychological profile and used it to connect with my ex-husband. She insisted that she never shared anything from our sessions with him, and that their relationship had nothing to do with me. But how can that be true? She knows everything about me, my trauma, my fears, my weaknesses, and now she's with the man who broke my heart, armed with all that information. I reported her to the state licensing board. I filed a formal complaint about the ethical breach, but the board said that because Paul was never her patient, and because they started dating more than 2 years after my divorce was finalized, it's technically not a violation of the rules. Therapists are allowed to have personal lives. I feel insane. I feel like I've been violated in a way I can't even explain. 5 years of therapy, of bearing my soul to this woman, and now she's in a relationship with my ex-husband. I've lost my therapist, my safe space, and my ability to trust anyone ever again. My friends are split. Some say Dr. Lauren did nothing legally wrong, and that I need to accept that Paul is allowed to date whoever he wants. Others think it's a disgusting betrayal, and that she should have referred me to another therapist the moment she started seeing him. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward. I feel like I can't trust any therapist again. How do I even begin to unpack this with someone new? I read my 16-year-old daughter's diary and found out she's selling explicit content online. I'm a 44-year-old mother, and I'm in a full-blown crisis. I did something I swore I'd never do, and what I found has turned my world upside down. My daughter Chloe is 16 years old. Up until a few months ago, she was a normal teenager. Good grades, nice friends, involved in school activities. But recently, things changed. She became secretive, constantly on her phone, defensive when I asked questions. I chalked it up to normal teenage behavior. But then I noticed things that didn't add up. She had expensive items showing up, new makeup, designer clothes, AirPods. When I asked where she got the money, she said she was doing online tutoring and saving up from birthdays. But the math didn't work. She was getting hundreds of dollars worth of stuff every week. I also noticed her staying up until 2 or 3 a.m. on school nights, locked in her room. When I'd knock, she'd quickly shut her laptop and act irritated. She started dressing differently, more mature, more revealing. Her entire personality shifted. Last week, I did something I'm not proud of. While Chloe was at school, I went into her room and read her diary. I know, it's a massive invasion of privacy. But my gut was screaming that something was wrong. and I needed to know what was going on with my daughter. What I found made me feel physically sick. Chloe has been selling explicit content online. She created accounts on multiple platforms where she sells photos and videos of herself to adult men. She's making around $2,000 a month. In her diary, she wrote about how easy it is, how much money she's making, and how she's smarter than other girls her age who work minimum wage jobs for nothing. She wrote about specific requests she's gotten from buyers and how much she charges for different types of content. She also wrote about how she has to be careful not to show her face in certain photos so she doesn't get caught. I'm horrified. My 16-year-old daughter is being exploited by adult men online, and she doesn't even see it that way. She thinks she's a businesswoman. I confronted her as soon as she got home from school. I didn't even ease into it. I just told her I read her diary, and I know what she's been doing. She exploded. She screamed at me for invading her privacy, called me a hypocrite, and said I had no right to go through her things. When I tried to explain that what she's doing is illegal and dangerous, she said, "It's my body. I'm not hurting anyone. These men are paying me, and I'm in control." She said girls at her school do way worse things for free, and at least she's getting paid. I told her it stops immediately. I confiscated her phone, her laptop, and her iPad. I changed the Wi-Fi password. She's essentially grounded indefinitely until I figure out what to do. But now, she's not speaking to me. She says I'm ruining her life, that I'm controlling and don't respect her autonomy. She's threatened to run away or go live with her dad, my ex-husband, who lives in another state and is barely involved. I'm paralyzed. Do I call the police? Do I report the platform she was using? Do I contact a therapist? I'm terrified that if I involve authorities, Chloe could face legal consequences herself, even though she's technically a victim. My ex-husband says I'm overreacting and that teens do dumb stuff online, and I should just talk to her. But this isn't dumb stuff. This is exploitation. Some parents I've confided in say I should have never read her diary, that I violated her trust, and now she'll never open up to me again. Others say I absolutely did the right thing and potentially saved her from something even worse. I don't know how to move forward. I'm terrified for my daughter, furious at the men exploiting her and drowning in guilt for reading her diary. But if I hadn't read it, I'd still be in the dark while she continued down this path. What do I do? How do I protect her while also respecting her enough that she doesn't shut me out completely? I feel like I'm failing as a parent no matter what choice I make. I paid for my girlfriend's plastic surgery and now she wants to break up. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I'm feeling used, heartbroken, and frankly, stupid. I need to know if I have any right to be angry or if I'm just being a bitter ex. I've been with my girlfriend, well, ex-girlfriend now, Vanessa, for 3 years. For most of our relationship, things were great. We got along well, had fun together, and I genuinely thought we were building toward marriage. Vanessa always had insecurities about her appearance, specifically her nose. She hated it. She'd make comments about it constantly, say she felt ugly in photos, and talk about how much she wanted a rhinoplasty. It clearly affected her self-esteem. About 8 months ago, she brought up the surgery seriously. She'd done all the research, found a surgeon she liked, and had a consultation. The problem? It cost $15,000, and she didn't have that kind of money. She worked as a server and was living paycheck to paycheck. I make decent money as an engineer, and I'd been saving up for a down payment on a house. When Vanessa told me how much the surgery meant to her, I offered to pay for it. I told her I wanted her to feel confident and happy, and that if this surgery would do that, I'd cover the cost. She cried and thanked me over and over. She said she'd pay me back eventually, but I told her not to worry about it. I said it was a gift because I loved her and wanted her to feel beautiful. The surgery happened 4 months ago. The recovery was rough, but the results were great. Vanessa looked amazing, and more importantly, she felt amazing. Her confidence skyrocketed. She started dressing differently, going out more, posting photos of herself constantly. I was genuinely happy for her. But then things started to shift. She became more distant. She'd go out with friends and not invite me. She'd be on her phone constantly, smiling at messages she wouldn't show me. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd say she was fine and that I was being paranoid. 2 weeks ago, she sat me down and said she wanted to break up. Her reason? I feel like we've grown apart. I'm not the same person I was when we started dating, and I think we want different things now. I was blindsided. I asked her what changed, and she gave me vague answers about finding herself. and needing space to explore who she is now. When I pressed her, she admitted that she feels like our relationship was based on the old version of herself. And now that she's more confident, she wants to experience life differently. I'm not an idiot. What she's really saying is that now that she's hot, she doesn't want to be tied down to the guy who was with her before her glow-up. Here's where it gets messy. I asked her about the $15,000 I spent on her surgery. I said, "So, I paid for you to feel confident enough to leave me?" She got defensive and said the surgery was a gift, that I can't hold it over her head, and that she never asked me to pay for it. I offered. Technically, she's right. I did offer. But I never imagined she'd dump me 4 months later. I told her I want the money back. She said absolutely not, that it was a gift, and I can't ask for gifts back just because we broke up. She said if I kept pushing, she'd consider it financial abuse. I'm furious. I feel used. I paid $15,000 for her to transform herself and then leave me for someone better. My friends are split. Some say I got played and should take her to small claims court. Others say I'm being a bitter ex and that gifts are gifts, even if the relationship ends. My sister thinks Vanessa planned this all along, that she used me for the surgery and was always going to leave once she got what she wanted. But I don't want to believe that. I loved her. I thought she loved me. So now I'm out $15,000 single and feeling like an idiot. Do I have any right to ask for that money back? Or do I just have to accept that I made an expensive mistake? My mother-in-law has a key to our apartment and comes in when we're not home. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I'm at my breaking point with my husband's mother. I don't know if I'm overreacting or if what I did was justified, but my entire family is furious at me right now. My husband Derek and I have been married for 2 years. We live in a small 2-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from his parents' house. When we first moved in, my mother-in-law Linda asked if she could have a spare key, just in case of emergencies. At the time, I thought it was reasonable. What if we locked ourselves out? What if there was a fire and someone needed to get in? So we gave her a key. That was a mistake. At first, it was small things. I'd come home and notice the dishes were done differently than how I'd left them. Or the laundry would be folded and put away in places I didn't put them. When I asked Derek about it, he said his mom probably stopped by to help out. I thought it was a little weird, but I didn't make a big deal about it. Then it escalated. I started noticing bigger things. My pantry would be reorganized. My bathroom cabinets would be rearranged. Furniture would be moved slightly. One time I came home and all of our towels had been replaced with new ones that Linda had bought because she thought ours were too old. I told Derek I was uncomfortable with his mom coming into our apartment when we weren't home. He said she was just trying to be helpful and that I should appreciate her because not everyone has a mother-in-law who cares this much. But it kept getting worse. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes like, "Cleaned your bathroom. Here are some better cleaning supplies for next time." Or, "Noticed you were low on groceries, so I restocked your fridge. You're welcome." The final straw came 3 weeks ago. I came home from work early and decided to change into something more comfortable before meeting a friend for dinner. I opened my dresser drawer and immediately noticed something was off. My underwear drawer had been completely reorganized. Not just organized, reorganized by color and style, like a damn department store. I was horrified. I called Derek immediately and told him his mother had gone through my underwear drawer. He tried to laugh it off and said she probably just folded laundry and put things away. But I don't leave my underwear in the laundry. I put it away myself. She had to have opened my drawer and gone through it intentionally. That's when I decided to install a camera in our living room without telling Derek. I needed proof that this was happening as often as I thought it was. What I saw on the footage made my blood boil. Over the course of 1 week, Linda came into our apartment 5 times. She wasn't just tidying up, she was snooping. I watched her open drawers, look through our mail, check our bedroom closets, even flip through papers on Derek's desk. I confronted Derek with the footage. He was uncomfortable but still defensive of his mom. He said she means well and just wants to help. I told him that going through our personal belongings without permission isn't helping. It's invading our privacy. We agreed to talk to Linda together, but when we sat her down and told her we needed the key back and that she couldn't come over anymore without asking, she lost it. She cried and said we were being ungrateful and cruel. She said all she's ever done is try to help us, and this is how we repay her? She said the apartment is too dark and she needs access to open the windows during the day, and that we clearly can't take care of ourselves if the place is always messy when she stops by. Derek tried to stay firm, but I could see him wavering. So I made the decision myself. The next day, while Derek was at work, I called a locksmith and had our locks changed. I didn't tell Linda. I didn't tell Derek until after it was done. When Derek found out, he was furious. He said I went behind his back and made a unilateral decision about our home. He said I humiliated his mother and caused a huge rift in his family. Linda has been calling and texting nonstop, crying about how hurt she is. Derek's entire family is now involved. His dad called me disrespectful. His sister said I'm controlling and that Derek needs to stand up to me. Even some of our mutual friends think I went too far and should have just had another conversation with Linda instead of changing the locks. But here's my perspective. I asked her to stop. We had conversations. I showed Derek proof of her snooping, and nothing changed. She has no respect for our boundaries, and Derek wasn't willing to enforce them. So I did. Now Derek is barely speaking to me. He's been sleeping on the couch for the past week. He says I owe his mom an apology and that I need to give her a new key. I've refused. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I the asshole for changing the locks without telling my husband? Or was I justified in protecting my privacy? I hired a private investigator and found out my dad has another family. I'm a 25-year-old woman, and I just discovered something that has completely shattered my understanding of my entire life. I don't know what to do with this information, and I'm terrified of the consequences of either keeping it secret or revealing it. My dad has always been a bit of an enigma. He's a consultant who travels constantly for work, or at least that's what he's always told us. Growing up, he'd be gone for 2 weeks at a time, sometimes 3. Then he'd come home for a week or 2, and the cycle would repeat. My mom never questioned it. She'd say, "Dad works hard to provide for us." And that was that. But as I got older, things started feeling off. He'd be weird about his phone, always tilting it away when texting. He had a separate credit card that he said was just for work expenses. He'd sometimes slip up and mention places or events that didn't align with where he said he was traveling for work. Last year, my mom mentioned wanting to surprise him on a work trip for their anniversary. She was planning to fly out to the city where he said he'd be. He completely panicked and shut it down, saying clients wouldn't appreciate a spouse showing up and it would be unprofessional. It was such an extreme reaction that it stuck with me. A few months ago, I decided to dig deeper. I know it sounds crazy, but I hired a private investigator. I used money I'd saved from my job and told the investigator I needed to know where my dad really was during his work trips. I half expected to find out he was having an affair or gambling or something like that. What the investigator found was so much worse. My dad has another family, another wife, 2 kids, a boy who's 10 and a girl who's 7. They live in a city about 3 hours away from us. He's not traveling for work. He's living a completely separate life with another family. The investigator gave me photos, addresses, even social media profiles. I've spent hours looking at pictures of my dad with these people. Him at soccer games with the boy. Him holding the little girl on his shoulders at a park. Him kissing this other woman at what looks like a family barbecue. The worst part? He's been doing this for at least 12 years. This isn't some recent affair that spiraled out of control. This is a fully planned, fully executed double life. Both families think they're his only family. I feel like I'm in a nightmare. My dad, who taught me to ride a bike, who paid for my college, who walked me through breakups and job rejections, this man has been lying to us every single day for over a decade. I've been sitting on this information for 3 weeks now, and I'm completely paralyzed. I don't know what to do. Do I tell my mom? She's 53 years old, and this will destroy her. Her entire marriage is a lie. Everything she thought she knew about her life is fake. Do I confront my dad first? Give him a chance to explain, even though there's no possible explanation that makes this okay? What if he begs me to stay quiet? What if he threatens me? And what about the other family? Do they deserve to know too? That woman thinks she's married to a faithful husband. Those kids think they have a dad who loves them and is committed to their family. Then there's my siblings. I have a younger brother who's 22. He idolizes our dad. This information would devastate him. Do I tell him first, or do I protect him from it as long as possible? I also keep thinking about the fact that I have half-siblings I never knew existed. A 10-year-old brother and a 7-year-old sister who have no idea I exist. Do I want to know them? Do they deserve to know about me? The guilt of keeping this secret is eating me alive. Every time I see my mom, I want to scream the truth at her. Every time my dad calls me, I feel sick. I've been avoiding family dinners because I can't look at him without feeling rage. But I'm also terrified of what happens when this comes out. My mom will be heartbroken. My family will implode. Finances will get messy. Does my mom have any legal claim to assets if they've been married this whole time, but he's been supporting another family too? Part of me thinks I should just stay out of it. Maybe it's not my place to blow up everyone's lives. Maybe ignorance really is bliss, and telling the truth will only cause pain. But another part of me knows that my mom deserves to know. She deserves the chance to make informed decisions about her own life. She shouldn't spend another day living in a lie. I've considered sending an anonymous letter or email to everyone involved, just laying out the facts and letting the chips fall where they may. But that feels cowardly. I've also thought about confronting my dad privately and demanding that he come clean to everyone himself. But what if he doesn't? What if he just gets better at hiding it? My best friend says I should tell my mom immediately and let her decide what to do with the information. But my therapist says I need to think about my own mental health first and not take on the burden of being the messenger. I'm 25 years old and I feel like I'm holding a bomb that's going to go off no matter what I do. If I stay quiet, I'm complicit in the lie. If I speak up, I'm the person who destroyed my family. I guess what I'm really asking is, what would you do? Would you tell, or would you keep this secret? And if you would tell, how would you even begin to have that conversation? My vegan roommate is secretly eating meat and blaming me for it. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and I'm living in the most absurd, infuriating situation right now. I need to know if I'm crazy or if my roommate is genuinely gaslighting me. I share a 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate, Alex. He's 27, and when we moved in together 8 months ago, one of the first things he told me was that he's a strict vegan, not just plant-based for health reasons, like ethical vegan, the whole philosophy. He's very vocal about it, and I mean very vocal. Alex talks about veganism constantly. If I'm eating chicken, he'll make comments about factory farming. If I'm drinking milk, he'll bring up the dairy industry. He's even given me documentaries to watch and articles to read. I don't mind people having their beliefs, but he's borderline preachy about it. He's also very active on social media about veganism. He posts daily about animal rights, shares vegan recipes, and even does these self-righteous rants about people who claim to care about animals but still eat them. His whole identity is wrapped up in being vegan. Here's where things got weird. About 2 months ago, I started noticing meat packaging in our trash. At first, I thought maybe I'd just thrown it away and forgotten. But then, it kept happening. Beef packaging, chicken containers, even a styrofoam tray that had clearly held steak. I brought it up to Alex casually. I said, "Hey, I keep finding meat packaging in the trash. Are you sure your girlfriend isn't leaving it here when she visits?" He got really defensive and said, "Dude, why would there be meat in our apartment? You're the only one who eats that stuff. Maybe you're just forgetting what you buy." But I knew I wasn't forgetting. I'm pretty conscious about what I eat, and I definitely wasn't buying steak. So I started paying closer attention. That's when I noticed our trash bag situation was weird. Alex would always insist on taking the trash out himself. He'd say, "I've got it, don't worry about it," and rush to take the bag out before I could offer to help. At the time, I thought he was just being a good roommate. Now I realize he was trying to hide something. One night, I came home earlier than expected from a work event. I walked into the apartment and smelled something unmistakable. Bacon. I walked into the kitchen and there was Alex, standing at the stove, cooking bacon. Actual bacon. He looked like a deer in headlights when he saw me. I said, "Dude, what the hell? I thought you were vegan." He stammered for a second and then said, "This isn't mine. I'm cooking it for my girlfriend. She asked me to make her dinner before she comes over." But here's the thing. His girlfriend wasn't coming over. I checked with our mutual friend later, and she wasn't even in town that week. He fully lied to my face, so I decided to set up a camera in the kitchen. I know that sounds extreme, but I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I put a small camera on the shelf that faces the kitchen and let it record for a week while I was at work. The footage was damning. Alex was eating meat, a lot of meat. Burgers, chicken wings, deli sandwiches, pepperoni pizza. He'd come home from work, cook or order meat-heavy meals, eat them, and then meticulously hide the evidence. He'd take the trash out immediately after eating, sometimes even taking it to a dumpster down the street instead of our building's trash chute. But the absolute kicker? After eating these meals, he'd go on social media and post about his vegan lifestyle. One day, I watched him eat an entire rotisserie chicken and then post an Instagram story that said, Day 1830 of being vegan. Never felt better. I confronted him with the footage. I sat him down and showed him the videos on my laptop. I expected him to be embarrassed, to come clean, maybe even to laugh about it. Instead, he got angry. He said I invaded his privacy by recording him without permission. He said the camera was illegal and I had no right to film him in a shared space. He completely avoided addressing the actual issue, that he's been lying about being vegan while publicly shaming other people for eating meat. When I pushed him on the hypocrisy, he said, "It's none of your business what I eat. I never asked you to hold me accountable." But then he continued, saying that he's still mostly vegan and that his occasional meat consumption doesn't define him. I pointed out that he literally posts about being vegan every single day and judges other people for not being vegan. He said, "That's different. I'm advocating for a movement. What I do in private doesn't matter." Since then, the apartment has been incredibly tense. He's barely speaking to me. He's also been telling our mutual friends that I'm harassing him about his diet and that I'm being invasive and controlling. Some of our friends have actually sided with him, saying I shouldn't have put up a camera and that what he eats is his business. But I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. This guy has built his entire personality around being morally superior because he's vegan. He's shamed me and countless others for eating meat. And now I have proof that he's been lying the whole time, and somehow I'm the bad guy for calling him out? I've thought about posting the footage publicly to expose his hypocrisy, but part of me knows that's going too far. At the same time, I feel like he deserves to be called out. He's a fraud. So, what do? Do I just let this go and find a new roommate? Do I expose him? Do I keep confronting him until he admits what he's doing? I'm so tired of being gaslit by someone who's clearly living a lie.